Welcome back. I want to keep talking and covering the aftermath of this massive blast in Beirut. Michel Moawad is a member of the Lebanese Parliament and founder and president of the independence movement. He joins me now from Beirut via Skype. So you saw the anger of ordinary Lebanese people directed at their politicians today. And in the last few months during demonstrations, they're demanding accountability, they're demanding transparency. Do you think this moment will be any different? Do you think they'll get what they're asking for?
I hope so. I totally understand people to be more than furious, more than angry, because what is happening in Lebanon is a complete disaster. It's a nightmare for all of us, not only for ordinary people. For any Lebanese citizen that dreamt about Lebanon as a beacon of democracy, of openness, of pluralism in the country, what is happening is that we're living a Lebanon that is hijacked politically, that is hijacked by corruption, that is hijacked by incompetence, and that is totally unacceptable.
Okay, so how do you change things? Because the way this is a systemic problem, the way the power structure is set up, and you would have to start from scratch. How do you do that?
Well, it's time to be clear about what are the solutions. To know what are the solutions, we need to know what are the problems. The first problem is macropolitic.
Right.
We cannot be part of the conflicts in the region. We cannot be hijacked, and I'm using the term hijacked, by Hezbollah into being part of the Iranian, servicing the Iranian agenda in the region on the one part, and turning our back to our friends, to our allies, to our supporters, to the Arab world, to the West, to our economic and financial partners. On the other hand, yes, you are right. The corruption in the country has become systemic. So yes, we need to change this. And I personally have requested and voted for early elections to start from scratch and having a new parliament that has a bigger legitimacy, and of course, build a new government based on the elections.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hezbollah, and Hezbollah, of course, is almost a state within a state. It has its own militia. It is Iran-backed. I mean, how does a country like Lebanon, that's divided into so many spheres of influence, with a relatively weak central government, if you compare it, for instance, to Hezbollah, how does that country become a representative democracy for all of its people, regardless of sect?
Well, as you said, we have a country within a country. We have a state within a state. And yes, you are right. That is why it's time for Hezbollah to accept that himself, even within his own constituency, cannot continue taking Lebanon the way he is. Of course, I'm talking about Hezbollah concerning getting Lebanon to the Iranian agenda. But when we're talking about corruption, that is unfortunately widespread and across board of I'm not going to say all the political class, but I'm going to say most of the political class.
Mm-hmm. And so you outlined the problems. The solution, you think, potentially could be early elections and a kind of national will to change things. You heard what Emmanuel Macron said today, where he said essentially, we're not going to send any money or aid directly to the government because this system has lost the trust of its people. We're going to go through NGOs. What is your reaction to that?
That I totally support what Emmanuel Macron has said. Unfortunately, money has gone to the government more than once. There have been promises of reforms more than once. And unfortunately, that money went to finance corruption and to only delay the problematic that we have arrived to. Today, it is very clear that we, as a Lebanese people, I personally, saying whom I'm representing, I'm saying no, with no reforms, we do not want money going to the government, clearly, because that money is going to go into the pockets of some politicians, and that is not acceptable anymore. We want we want reforms, we want accountability, we want transparency.
But in the immediate, I mean, in the near future, you have a huge problem ahead for your country because the port is essentially out of commission. You know, the country might have, what, 4 weeks, 5 weeks of wheat left. Medical supplies, all sorts of things come through that port. What will you do?
Well, one, on the short term concerning the port, we have the Tripoli port that could be able on the short term to solve or to manage the problem. Second, yes, I totally agree that NGOs in Lebanon can help. You know, apart from being an MP, I'm the executive director of the René Moawad Foundation, RMF, that is one of the main partners of the international institutions in Lebanon. We're working on the ground. I think that very often NGOs are being much more efficient than central government in doing that. We can work through municipalities also because local governments are maybe in Beirut, unfortunately, the municipality, I mean, the question of the municipality of Beirut is very complicated by law because it's part of the central government between the muhafiz and the municipality. But NGOs are there on the ground. People are willing, despite their disgust, despite their anger. You can see, on the other hand, an incredible sense of solidarity between the Lebanese. People are helping each other. A lot of volunteers are working on the ground. And I think those are the people we need to push to help people out. And yes, you're right. We are, what is happening is a real tragedy. We are having, until tonight, around 150 dead. We're still counting the dead because, you know, we have injured people in a very severe cases. We have still people missing. We have more than 300,000 people that do not have any more homes. We're talking about 7 to 8% of the total population. And that is without the explosion. We very well know that before this, more than 50% of the Lebanese were already living under the line of poverty and not having access to their money in the banks.
Michel Moawad, Lebanese Member of Parliament, thank you very much for joining us there.